Hello, welcome to episode 18 of the Knowledge Panel. What did SEO mean for you in 2021? Thanks very much for coming on board. We've got a great panel and lineup again this week. Can I just introduce you to the panel and let me ask the panel to introduce themselves, if I can. Why don't we start with you, Isaline? You had your microphone off, but so Isaline, why don't you tell us who you are, where you come from? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for having me here today. My name is Isaline Mülhauser. I'm an SEO consultant specialized in multilingual SEO. I'm based in Lausanne, which is a French-speaking Switzerland. As you can see, English is my third language, so I'm not a native. So, of course, I hope you will enjoy my accent here and my effort to be part of the party today.
We're just amazed that everybody that's English speaking, we're so rubbish at learning other languages, and the fact that you're sitting there doing this in your third language is very impressive. So thanks very much for coming in, Isaline. Thanks a lot. Billie, why don't you say hello? Who are you? Where do you come from?
Hi, so I'm Billie. I'm a senior account manager and the training lead at the SEO Works. I'm based in the UK in Sheffield, which is the foggiest place on the planet right now. It's horrible. And yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. And thanks everyone ever so much for coming on. And I'm glad the SEO Works is doing great up there in spite of the fog. I wonder how foggy it is in Los Angeles, in California, Eric.
I wonder too, because I'm actually in the Massachusetts area.
Oh, of course you are.
So
sorry. Okay.
The other end
it shows how much I remember. Yes.
But that's okay. So I'm Eric Enge. I was formerly CEO of Stone Temple Consulting, agency that we sold to Perficient in 2018. I worked at Perficient for 3 years. I continue to do some consulting work together with them and some other work on my own out of my little company now called Pilot Holding. You can work on the joke later. Just excited to be here and looking forward to the discussion today.
Brilliant. Excellent. So thank you all for coming in. Just before we dive in, I always got to bring in my producer, David, because I've always forgotten something. David, what have I forgotten this time round?
I don't think I've got to come up with something different that you've forgotten each time around, just for the the nature of the show. But I just want to say, anyone that's listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever platform, thank you so much for listening to the show on these platforms. But of course, if you can, try and join us live for next time. Just go to theknowledgepanelshow.com, sign up to watch the next one live. We'll tell you when the next show will be, just towards the end of this episode.
Okay. And of course, thanks to Inlinks for sponsoring, paying for. I must admit, I'm the CEO of Inlinks, so it was going to happen anyway, paying for the show. So, right, let's dive in. 2021. Interesting year for SEO. Not interesting. It's always an interesting year for SEO. What stood out for you guys in 2021? For me, what stood out was core web vitals at the start being so important for everybody in their minds right at the start. Everybody, Google sort of said, oh yeah, we're going to have this big purge on core web vitals, and getting everybody to make their sites much faster and do all sorts of things. It seemed a little bit consuming at the start of 2021, but didn't really seem to amount to much. Was that just me, or Billie, were you sort of spending the whole of 2021 on core web vitals?
So I didn't spend the whole of the year on core web vitals, but I think core web vitals was really important for the industry. It's definitely changed how I work with a lot of clients, and it's made SEO more ingrained into various business strategies now. I find that I'm speaking with more user experience teams, more development teams than I've literally ever before, just because they've got more questions. And I think core web vitals, for one, will be just the start of this process, really. I think there's more to come, and it's just going to become much more about the user and user experience. And it's been a really interesting transition, because working as an agency, I just had one point of contact, and now I speak to dozens of people in just one business, and it's so interesting.
That's really interesting. So it's changed from it's made SEO a broader subject for you, and have a broader appeal within the companies that you're working with. And that in itself has got to be good for the SEO industry if you're then touching much further into the industry. Isabel, you're nodding. Is that the same? Did you notice the same sort of thing?
Yeah, I saw that it got more people interested in SEO, people who would have thought that maybe it was something technical and that would not touch the field. As Billie said, like maybe some more user experience experts or designer who would have thought, oh no, well, SEO, I don't really need to care. So I think it changed more about the way we frame SEO when we discuss with other specialists, rather than really awful graphs going downwards. I mean, if the website was okay, it can have stayed okay.
Eric, you found the same, or did you get out of that world just before all that happened?
Well, no, I mean, I saw a lot of companies that got over obsessed with speed, and by the way, it's not wrong, but the idea that they would be obsessed with pursuing the speed with which their pages load because of Google saying it's a ranking factor is a little off course, because it's a small ranking factor. And actually, together with Proficient, I did a very detailed study that shows that. I think the broader story is the existence of the page experience ranking factor, which is an amalgamation of multiple factors, right? Including whether you're mobile friendly or not, and you have interstitials and HTTPS and stuff like that. Because what Google now has done is they've created this place that they can plug into the broader algorithm a wide array of different additional user experience related factors as they come up with ideas and things to test. And I would very much expect that. So, I mean, Billie and Isaline, it's great that you had the experience of much more contact with user experience people, because it is and should be rightfully thought of as a very important component of SEO. Even if the main thing it does right now is drive up your conversion rate, the reality is that will have at least some indirect benefits to SEO. And you know, maybe it have some small benefits in the meantime.
And do you think the tools that Google provided us with were very helpful in that, or did you find yourselves having to rely on other tools apart from Google to help with the core Web Vitals?
Well, from my perspective, at least, the tools are not bad. The challenge with them is that there's really a lot more, like if you're really trying to fix it, there's a lot more deep technical detail that you have to dive into to be able to really, make your LCP faster and solve your FID problems. So
what's an FID problem?
So first input delay.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Basically, is there some latency in the browser where it's busy running some JavaScript, so when the user hits some action, it's not able to respond right away?
Yeah.
That delay is called first input delay.
Okay.
And
that's more TLAs, and they mess with my head.
I'm sorry, what, TLA? Oh no, just kidding.
3-letter abbreviation. Yeah. So it sends me off every now and then. So that, and I think the time to first patent, time to last patent, there were a lot of new ideas that came in there with Core Web Vitals, and I think that was great because it gave us all something to get our head around. But I just felt that a lot of people, as you say, Eric, just went for the speed thing. Thought that was it. That was the SEO kind of thing. We got to make sure it gets 100% on Lighthouse or whatever tool they're going to use to measure that. But
Right.
I think it's really good. I guess because I'm not agency side, I didn't really appreciate that increased engagement with the customer. I think that's a really useful
That's awesome.
thing to see. So Billie says that she's having some Wi-Fi issues, which is probably me. But if she doesn't reply to anything, then we'll let her off and carry on. But hopefully you can still hear us there, Billie. Okay, so let's jump into some other bits. Eric, before we came on the show, you talked about the passages update. So passaging, indexing content by passages, which is a bit of a favorite topic for me. But why don't you tell the audience what happened back in January and how we saw it and how we didn't see it as SEOs?
Yeah, late last year, Google announced that they were going to do a couple different things. They were going to introduce this concept of passages. It was one of the bigger ones. And the whole idea was that you might have a longer form piece of content. And somewhere down here, there might be one of the rare places on the web that happens to answer one very specific user question. And the example they shared in their initial announcement was whether or not you could tell your glass, the glass in your windows was screening out ultraviolet light or not. That's a question that isn't like commonly, addressed anywhere. So they might find that buried in some, 800-word piece of content. And historically, their algorithms would not have been able to surface that because the way they were designed was to understand the piece as a whole. But that very specific data point might not emerge as, as being kind of separately indexed, if you will. So with this announcement, which they, I believe, rolled out in January of this year, they've actually started to do that, and they've started to surface that kind of information. And what's interesting about that is it speaks to how Google is obsessed with understanding the customer journey, the various steps that users take, which rarely begin and end with one query, unless it's very transactional. If you type pizza on your mobile phone, then that's probably a one query journey or very close to one query. But a lot of other queries aren't. So it really tells a story about where they're headed.
So Billie and Isaline, is that something that was big with your clients at the time, or did you guys do anything different as a result of Google coming out with that, or did life carry on as before, really? Because, not least because you're probably concentrating on the core Web Vitals updates that were coming down the road. But did you guys get involved much in passage indexing or thinking about it at the time?
For me, we started looking at the content we was creating for my clients, blog posts, articles, and even like very specific service pages in a much broader level. So rather than just creating the one-stop shop of just for one specific user journey kind of thing, we started to look at the different types of users and their search journey, so we could kind of find them on different levels. So whether it was restructuring the site and the navigation to target users that have a very specific end game in place, we'd target those, but we could also have a similar page where it would target people that are much earlier on in the sales funnel, looking at say if it was like an aesthetics company that was looking at Botox, well, they could just be searching for a concern, things like that. We were able to target such a broad range of people, and those passages were massive helps with that. So we was essentially just doing targeting those zero search volume terms, and those, although it allegedly searches for them that gets 0 searches a month. Those were actually massive traffic bringers, and I found them so valuable.
Interesting. Isaline, I don't know if you want to jump in there.
Yep. I think for me it meant like really organizing the texts in a clear and structured way, and covering large semantic fields. And sometimes, as Billie mentioned, it's meant that what seems like a not so important keyword actually grew in importance because we could target it and be visible for it, even though it was maybe not a whole article or like very long format, something like that.
I think it worked well for us as well at InLinks, for the internal links part of what InLinks does, in that because InLinks is reading basically in passages, it's reading, sort of extracting entities as you go down a page, and then connecting the dots. So somebody could be talking about ultraviolet light, and then we'd pick that up, and then as soon as somebody said, which page is the page on the website that's important about ultraviolet light, or Windows, it's ultraviolet light in Windows, if they've used that text right next to each other, then it'll link through to that Windows page anyway. So we were hopefully taking that for a lot of websites. It depends on how the user sets it up a little bit, but it for a lot of users, hopefully, if Google was going to pick up the concept of ultraviolet light in Windows in a piece of content, we've picked up that's then talked about on the Windows page or the UV light page, whatever is important for the website in question, and links through. So it's taking people from the long tail, hopefully, back to the to the money pages, we hope, and expanding the customers' confidence in the website that they're looking at. So it turned out to be quite good for InLinks. I think we had quite a little wave of a community on a website or a Facebook forum on SEO that sort of dived in and said, this answers that problem. So it worked out quite nice for us. So that was nice. So I was quite glad that passage indexing came along. Core Web Vitals not so useful for me, because all I do is slow a website down with JavaScript. But anyway, yeah, okay. We had a question coming in from Suresh Kumar. He went down a bit of a technical route, which is sort of some of our customers, I suppose, ask about. And he said, should we build our own knowledge graphs on our own website, on our website itself, or should we use external knowledge graph databases for more impact? So I don't know if that was aimed at me. I don't know if Eric's going to jump in, or Billie wants to jump in, or Isaline. But I think if you've got the energy to build your own knowledge graph manually for your website and try and work out all the things that you're talking about on every single web page, then great. But I think you're going to have two challenges. The first is it's going to take you bloody ages. And I think the second thing is you will miss things. I think the disadvantage of using a third-party knowledge graph is you're going to get entities that are not related to your business at all, and then the system will overcompensate. So I think it's I would say yes, if you can build your own knowledge graph for your website, so you know exactly what you're talking about, where, on which pages, then that's absolutely brilliant. It helps you build schema, helps you understand your content better, and it's good. But I would say use third-party knowledge graphs like InLinks to get ideas, but pare out the bad ones, the rubbish ones, and whether you use InLinks or whether you use IBM's Watson, which is also free, or Google's own natural AI tool, or natural language processing tool, they used to call it, doesn't return very many entities. That's the only problem I would say with Google's one, is they don't return a huge amount of things. They're really good at turning out, what brands you're talking about and what locations you're talking about. It's rubbish at talking about things like ultraviolet light or Windows or those kind of things. It's just rubbish at finding those kind of things. So I think a human is better at understanding the underlying concepts than Google is reporting in its own AI. Of course, Google does understand a lot more than its own AI. But I don't know. Eric, you've got a whole load more stuff on knowledge graphs. I saw a presentation you did the other day. Didn't mention my product at all, but you mentioned a bunch of other useful products. So maybe you've got some other thoughts in there.
I'm surprised you let me on the show. Yeah, no, I think when I think about the question, the way I'm sort of interpreting it is, should you have your own knowledge graph that you establish around your own market space, so that you make sure that you can comprehensively cover the topics and answer the wide range of user needs. And for that, whether you rely on a third-party source like the excellent tool from InLinks.
Yeah, right. You've blown that one now, Eric. It's no good now. You can talk about the other ones. It's fine.
No, but I mean, well, there are others. Jarvis, Shortly. There are others that surface information, and then the major enterprise SEO tools try to do some of this too. Bright Edge, Search Metrics, SEO Clarity. There's a number of different companies that are trying to attack this. But if you think about the passages discussion we had before, and the fact that customer journeys have a vast amount of complexity to them, and everybody's is just completely different, making sure that you're thorough and comprehensive in how you cover that with your content on your site starts with having some sort of map of all the things that you need to be talking about, and all the different aspects of questions. And first of all, there's no substitute for having a subject matter expert help you create that content, but having a tool like any of the tools I've mentioned, each of which has great different strengths and weaknesses, is an awesome way to augment that subject matter expert and make sure that they do a really good job of covering the breadth and depth of everything.
Yeah, cool. Billie, Isaline, I mean, unless you want to jump in on that, I'd like to move on to the SEO community itself over the last year. Isaline, you were saying that you feel that the community itself has made some strides towards a more inclusivity. How do you think that's that has happened, or do you think that's in patches, or do you think we're finally improving and the old guard are finally realizing that they don't know as much as they thought?
Well, if you want to know what the old guard is thinking or doing, I think you should ask them directly. But
it's all right. That's me and Eric. That's
I think I really like remembering the good thing that happens, especially at the end of the year when everybody's been working so much. And I have seen some really good things. I can't say if they are sufficient or enough, or how they improved life of minorities, but I saw, for instance, some big names who have lots of followers call out to conferences, or even not going to conferences as a speaker because they were not inclusive enough. And here I really would like to thank Arij Abu Ali for doing that, and also Azim Digital, because I think it takes lots of strength to do this. And I think for any newcomers, it's a really positive sign to see that people who are in a position of being famous or having some powers who actually do something, like not go to a conference or invite something different. So I hope this is something I will see much more in the future, of course. And I'm also striving to do it with my own podcast, Work in SEO. And I think we can make this industry a good place, and maybe just forget a bit about what is not such a good thing sometimes, and just go forwards and make everyone feel like they belong.
I think that some groups have done a lot better than others. I think Brighton SEO, I've got to give all credit to Kelvin. I think that Kelvin at Brighton SEO makes such a big effort of making, in his, I think he would like to have at least 50-50 male female, but not just male female. He wants to include that diversity and will force that diversity upon the group, and make sure he also puts the most diverse group, I suppose, on the main stage. So it's not just a case of, you've got the speakers coming in from different angles, but he's got the most diverse group of people on the main stage with the biggest audiences. So I think he does a good job. So I'll give a hand out to him. Billie, have you seen that as well? Have you seen more diversity and more inclusion of different groups?
I definitely have seen an increase in diversity. I don't think we're anywhere near a good enough stage yet. Every month we see a list of SEOs, a top 10, and it's all straight white men. It still
right.
happens.
You can put me in that category. That's okay. Yeah, it does. Absolutely, it does.
It is changing though, and there are things to keep trying to grow that change as well. So Sophie Gibson, who's a fantastic Sheffield-based SEO, recently put out the inclusivity and diversity commitment statement, which she's sent out to so many conference owners, podcasts, everyone, basically just trying to get people to sign their commitment to diversity. So then they've got something holding them accountable. And it's all in the name of positive change, but we're not at a stage yet where
of course, yeah. There's a long way to go. It's true, but I think I might bring our producer in here, because David, I know over the year we've tried really hard to make steps towards that positive change, and we found it hard at times, particularly on very, very complicated. We had a particular one on CDNs, on content development networks, where we had some struggles. But on this one and the other podcasts that we do, how hard have you found that to do that? Because I know it's been right at the top of your agenda.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it can be more challenging for very niche topics to get a true representation. I think the other challenge is when you're talking about a webinar that maybe has 4 people on or so, or 3 or 4 different people on, then to get a coverage every single episode. I'm not sure if we should be. I'd be interested in kind of Billie, Isaline, Eric's opinion on this as well. If we should be aiming for a fairly broad section of male, female, non-white representatives, if possible, in every single episode, or do you think it's completely reasonable not to have representation in every single episode, as long as if the average of episodes over a period of say a year offers reasonable representation?
Isaline, give us. I'd love your opinion on that.
I think the most important is to do your best and try, and on an individual level, to be curious about newcomers and different people writing articles. What I see very often, and I find a bit disappointing, is I see there are some SEO who know each other over the year, and they tend to share article and news only about a bunch of SEOs, whereas it could be interesting to be curious about new articles and new people writing things, and also like retweet or follow or like people who come from a different field or a different country, and just, generally speaking, not only as a community organizer, just like you do and the work that you do, but also just generally on the channels, as an individuals, to share good work that is maybe not from your pal, but from other people who are actually deserving, even though they they are newcomers and they might be writing from a different level than you are, but it's interesting also for other people. So
I absolutely agree. It's an interesting challenge for us oldies. Eric, would you say that
Yes.
we're so used to, I suppose, scratching each other's backs, and is it time for us to wake up and smell the coffee?
Well, I mean, it's an incredibly important topic, right? I mean, we just need to understand, if you come into a conversation and you're thinking there's this other group of people who's not a part of us, then you're just coming at it the wrong way. And we're one humanity, if you will, and we just need to be accepting of the differences and everybody. And it's not just accepting; it's like just there's no judgment. And it's like that's just who they are, and let's take them and value them for who they are as people, and be open to understanding the value that everybody brings to the table. And as Isaline suggests, share content from others. Or one of the things I try to do is when I left Proficient, I immediately started a program of mentoring people who were deliberately picked to be in, I'd say, somewhat disadvantaged situation. And they're early in their careers, struggling, and certainly I wanted minorities and this kind of thing, and women, this kind of diversity in terms of who I was interacting with, to just try to do a give back to that. So I think we all have to find our ways to contribute and try to make a difference.
Billie, any thoughts on us old guard on that so far?
Not in particular. I would just like to say that we are 4 white people discussing diversity, and we're not experts in this. We need to follow people that can help us help the wider community. So we should reach out to people like Rejoice. I'll tweet everyone whose name I'm about to list here, so we can find them. But Azim, Arij, people who are actively working to diversify the community, they're the ones that are going to be able to help, how we're saying, the old guard, and us white people like diversify our industry. And what we also need to do as well is that there is still a gap. The reason why there is so many white men in SEO is because there are more white men in SEO, and that's something that we also need to do as well, is not gatekeep our industry, is help people find SEO and not be put off by SEO, and show that we're this awesome community basically, and that there are a lot of people and a lot of companies and communities that have made mistakes in this industry, and they are trying to actively learn. And I don't think there is a right answer, because I'm not the person that can give a right answer.
I think all we can do is be moving in the right direction. Is it has got to be the objective, and it's quite clear in all manner of of disciplines to see that diversity will add to your own. If you have an inclusive thought group around you, inclusive and diverse group of people around you, you're going to get more diverse ideas, more diverse input.
Right.
But also the reverse of that, you're going to get much less cognitive bias as a result of having a diverse group of people. And so the decisions that you're going to make are less likely to be influenced by your own, your own bias of just because it's the things you know. And certainly from my personal perspective, I tend to start to trust the people that I've seen talking at conferences. I've been going to conferences for 20 years, and 20 years now. And so I hope that, that that minority groups don't not go to conferences because there's not enough people that are in minority groups there, because that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, in order for that knowledge to get into the wider group, then we need people to stand up and be on those webinars and accept the webinar invitations and add this to the debate. Otherwise, it's closing it down. So hopefully, that doesn't happen too much, and hopefully that only happens when somebody's really got a whole agenda full of white blokes on a conference. Isaline, you've been very quiet. Anything that you want to put in before we move on?
I would love to see a Twitter thread after this webinar about people the audience could follow. I think what Billie suggested, I completely agree. It's a good thing to follow people who are advocates, and so we could actually share efforts and do it.
Then let's start the thread and start to put out people that we think are great advocates of a diverse community. Billie, do you want to set that one off after the after the show, and we'll get it. And David, can we have a hashtag that we're going to put onto the podcast so that we can get people to that thread? How about hashtag SEO diversity, or is that a bit too? Is that okay for a hashtag for everyone in the group, or has somebody already done that one? No. Okay. We'll go for hashtag SEO diversity. Put on that, Billie, so that we can track it. We'll jump into that afterwards. Right. Okay. We've not got that much time left, and we've jumped through a whole load of different things. But back into SEO 2021. Let's pick on Google for a little bit, because everybody has to pick on Google. My question is, how near to the edge is Google in terms of disenfranchising its own users, not the SEO community necessarily, but its own users, by monetizing the results to such an extent that that they are diluting the quality of the results that are coming back? Isaline, I'm going to jump on you first. Do you think that the quality of the results is as good as they were a few years ago, or do you think there has been a change?
I think I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I don't feel I have enough time and experience to actually provide an answer for that.
I always appreciate when somebody on these webinars says, I don't know the answer to that question, because so rarely does it happen that we end up having people, going in and taking something in. I'll jump in with Eric. What do you think? Do you think it's been getting worse, or do you think I'm just putting smoke out there?
So maybe it's getting somewhat worse, and obviously Google would like to find more ways to monetize, better, but there's some natural pressures against that. First of all, advertisers really don't want to get clicks from people who aren't ready to buy something. They don't want irrelevant clicks. So, and people coming in that are looking with an informational query or something, that's maybe not a good way for that advertiser to spend their money. So the advertisers don't want it to go too far, that's for sure. And the searchers probably don't want it to go too far too, because it makes their task harder. And yes, Google is the dominant party, but it's not like there are no alternatives. There's, Ask a Friend, which is still the most trusted place for information and things like that. I think maybe another aspect of the story, Dixon, is Google answering more informational questions directly themselves and keeping them on platform. Which is, I feel like, more of a threat to publishers, even though Google tells us they're still sending more traffic out than ever before. But I think there's a significant amount of market forces that will keep the advertising from going too far.
And what about you, Billie? Do you think do you think Google's been getting further from the tree, or if you have more propensity to start using other search engines? I don't see a lot of other search engines taking up the slack, really.
Right.
So I did just publish an article about alternative search engines to Google,
Superb.
but I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm sticking with Google basically. I feel like there's some search terms where the ads that are a bit ridiculous. There's loads. It's you're not getting what you're wanting for. But I'm also one of them people that for some reason I just don't click on ads. I don't know why. If I see them and I'm just like repulsed, I'll just scroll a bit further down until I read something that's relevant to me. But I could ramble on forever. But I'm going to.
Well, and I do that as well. But I think we're probably you know a bit weird in the SEO industry because we immediately see the paid results and the organic results as totally different things, and so we have a tendency to do that. I don't know whether that's the norm out there for people in general. But okay, that debate's going to roll on for 2022. Then I think if they go too far, then they're going to get some more backlash. But I take the point that of course the advertisers won't take too much of it, but I have been reading quite a few people who have been saying, oh, my advertising dollars are better spent on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, I don't know, these other things over here. So they are already costing themselves some money. And then the other side of that was they've been talking about would a paid version of Google with no ads be something that you'd be interested in? They've been asking the users a little bit, and I think that's partly because a Googler went off to set up a search engine that was a paid only version of the search engine, but at the same time, it is an interesting question. Billie, Isaline, Eric, would you pay for a version of Google that didn't have any ads on a personal level? Anyway,
Probably.
Yeah, I think I would as well. I would like one that was entirely ad free. I'd happily put a reasonable sum into that and treat it like a bit of a Netflix kind of model. So, all right, let's leave it there. I think we're nearly at the end of our time and end of 2021 as well. So, David, what have we got planned for 2022?
Okay, yeah, so we've got lots planned for 22 already. So starting off with episode 19 of the Knowledge Panel. That's going to be on Monday the 17th of January 2022 at 4 p.m. GMT, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that topic for that one's going to be SEO for image search. Already confirmed for that one is Alicia Korobka and Roxana Stingu from Alamy. Go to theknowledgepanelshow.com to sign up for that one and try to be part of the live audience if you can.
Okay. And Billie, Isaline, Eric, Billie, if people want to get hold of you, where can they do that? And what hashtag are you going to use for this thread that we're going to go with, which I'm sure is going to come back in my face, no doubt, in the next 15 minutes.
So I'm going to stick with the SEO diversity one, just because my internet's been a bit too wild, so I didn't want to search and then lose all connection. And if anyone wants to find me, I'm all over the internet as Billie Gena.
And for those that can't see, those that can't see the screen, that's BILLIEGEENA for the podcasters. Sorry. Okay, great. And Isaline, how can people get hold of you?
People can find me on Twitter. It's at Isaline_Margot. And also at Work in SEO, which is my podcast and job board.
Isaline_Margot. How do you spell Margot, please? Well,
In English?
And Isaline is ISALINE, but just for the podcasters.
All right, let me see how I can spell in English. MARGOG, I don't know, ORT. I'll just write it in the chat and you can spell it.
Okay, I'll spell it. Fantastic. And in the meantime, Eric, how can they get hold of you?
That's actually Margot is the last part of Isaline's
Margot. I had a
Twitter handle.
I have a relation called Margot.
There you go. And for me, at Stone Temple, actually, STONETEMPLE is my Twitter handle. So that's where I can be found.
That's brilliant. So, guys, thank you ever so much for coming on. Slightly different episode to normal, and it's going to be interesting to see that debate again on Twitter, and hopefully we can find some appropriate people to follow in 2022 that is going to make our own worlds a little bit more inclusive. Thank you very much for coming on, and see you all next time. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye. Thank you.